of looking at school change system-wide, school-wide, and at the same time, you're still close to the classroom where everything is happening. Empowerment. And when we were first asked if we wanted to speak about our visible learning journey, I think for the past, this is the third session for the Empowerment Conference, I often wondered, what does empowerment mean? And I think that was mentioned this morning also. And even for our leadership team, what does empowerment look like? So, what's the first thing you do when you don't know what something is or what something is defined? You go to the dictionary, right? And so we went to the dictionary, found that the definition of empowerment is that there are measures designed to increase the degree of autonomy and self-determination in an individual. And I said, okay, let's go from there. Where does it begin? I think it begins with having a culture of empowerment, a culture where voice and choice is available for, at the very bottom, students. But we couldn't start with students, we had to start with the teachers, because teachers had to change their practices and their lessons in the classroom to bring out the voice and the choice of students. So this is what happened. The bigger question was, how do you create a school where individuals have autonomy and self-determination, especially if you're right in the middle of, first, No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, and all the mandates and accountability that comes with it. Okay, if this morning you heard Tony Wagner saying that there is that F word, and that F word was? Failure. For our school, the F word was, we became a focus school. Okay, and the focus school is just right above being a priority school. When you're a focus school, a little bit of autonomy is lost. A whole lot of self-determination is impacted. We were a focus school 3 years ago, and therefore, we were asked to find a program that would turn around our school. And Heidi Armstrong, our CAS, would have been here this morning, except she couldn't make it because of an emergency. And I think she is the wisest woman ever, because she said, in talking with you, in talking with your school leaders, in visiting your classrooms, I know it's not that you're not doing the right things. I see your teachers, they're working very hard, they have all the right strategies, you have your data team processes in place, it may not be perfect, so what's not working? And she said, maybe you're concentrating a little bit too much. How about trying visible learning? For all of you that don't know what visible learning is, it's based on John Hattie's work, and what he has done is really taken a look at all of the research, and he ranked those highest yield practices that will definitely make an improvement in student achievement. And so, we go to the next slide. Because sometimes something very technical is being told you're going to adopt a program can have a very unexpected outcome. And what it was for us was, it was an adaptive outcome that really changed the culture of our school. Kaimiloa, and I've been there for over 15 years now. Prior to that, I was a vice principal of the school. I left for a year, went to Kapolei High as a vice principal, and then I just returned to Kaimiloa maybe 12 years ago and became the principal there. So, knew the staff well, the staff knew me well. It was a very, very congenial group. But we all know when you want to make change in a system, you have to move from the congenial to the collegial and have those hard conversations. Well, visible learning provided this for us. Where previously we had teachers just going through the motions of teaching, several practices were actually getting teachers excited about the art of teaching. And at the same time, they were validated by the science of teaching, which came from Hattie's work. Some of the practices from VL that made a difference is that one teacher at a time. So you're not going to move a whole school. You're not going to move 50% of the school. I would say your first early adopters is maybe that 5% of teachers. That something resonated with them in the professional development that we were going to, and they took it and they ran with it. And I would like to say that probably CC and Amy were that initial 5% group. It is always with a small group of individuals or the early adopters that will create that momentum that moves the school forward. The momentum increased, and that was in our first year, which would have been 3 years ago. And that sense of empowerment that teachers were beginning to get is that it comes with that burning desire to define who we are. So you give a little bit of empowerment to teachers. You give that empowerment to students because the teachers are empowered. And then you have this urge to, who are we? Who are we as a school? And that was just a natural second step. And what we did at that point was to define who we are. And as you can see, it's not a very good picture, but it did involve a lot of things. We advertised what our school is doing, even the smallest things. We applauded teachers and students in our school for the things that they were moving along on. And last of all, we advocated every small thing that was worth celebrating. The next step to that was branding. We wanted people outside of Kaimiloa to know who we were. And this is what we did. So what you're looking at is our new logo, which is on the left. And in the middle, we do have some of the examples of how we tweeted out to social media what we were doing.
And the picture is normally really nice, but this projector is making it dark.
Yeah. It's not that it's not that we're just highlighting the 5%. Okay? When we first did this, we could see everybody there. Okay. In our branding, and one of the first things that we did was we revisited our vision and mission statement. And you know what happens in schools? Every time you go through something new or you hear something, you say, you know what, we gotta toss out our vision and mission, it doesn't fit. And I said, no, let's wear it for a little bit while longer, and let's see what fits and what doesn't fit. So we really, really looked into our original mission statement, which is seek, learn, and empower. And the reason why we chose that many, many years ago when I first arrived at the school as a principal is that Kaimiloa does mean seekers of knowledge in Hawaiian. So that seek is very critical for us. And we had every teacher on staff break up into their little groups, and they came up and revisited and reconnected with the original vision mission statements that we had. And you see some of the samples here. After that, it was, okay, you have a great mission statement, yeah? Seek, learn, and empower. Why are we doing this? Why do we want to create students who seek, learn, and empower? Because that why is critical. And it's still in the making, and I think every day it's evolving, but after that session, it was to cultivate a community of innovators. Because at the same time, we were talking about what does 21st century learning look like and what will it involve. So that was one of our thoughts. We put it up there and we said we're going to revisit it. This morning you heard Tony Wagner talk about the general learner outcomes and how it's really neat that Hawaii does have already in place 21st century skills. When we took a look at their GLOs, we felt that it was kind of limiting because when you think about it, you would want everyone to be a quality producer, right? You would want everybody to be able to work collaboratively together. So we asked ourselves, what are those other skills that's going to really push the innovation and creativity that we want in our students? So as a staff, we did come up with 6, and this is under the direction and support from Corwin, because they truly believe too, what we call the soft skills now, or 21st century skills, visible learning says are dispositions that will create learners who are their own teachers. And the 6 dispositions that we came out with was persevere, communicate, to be inquisitive, to be self-motivating, to be able to make connections, and it's not just the connecting of subject areas, which is integration, but it's the connection of past learning, new learning, and more importantly, the connections we make with other individuals. And the last one we feel is really key for a good learner to have is to be able to self-reflect. The person that designed, and it's very, as a leader, you have to be very strategic in how you're rolling out whatever you're doing. So the person that designed all of these graphics was a former Kaahaaina student. And I really went out to find that person, and she was right there on our campus, because she is currently our speech therapist. This is still under construction. Our original mascot was this really mean-looking cougar. And I said, if our mascot is going to represent everything we want from our students, yeah, we're going to have to change our mascot. And so this is Kai Cougar. Kai Cougar went through at least 10 drafts because I said, I want Kai to look young, to look confident. And you know, each draft would come back and we'd look at it and we said, no, what we want is a student or a mascot that looks sassy. Because I want our students, we all want our students to question their teachers, and they do in a respectful way. I want our students to be able to feel free to come up to me and say, Mrs. Satara, why did we have to change to this uniform versus this one? Did you ever look at the content of the fabric? And they will tell me this. So we had to really offer 2 different t-shirts with the same logo. One is 50% polyester, 50% cotton, and the other one is 100% cotton, because as you all know, okay. The other thing that's really, really critical we found is, how many of you know that there's so many terms that you use within the school and can be very easily articulated right out there? Data teams, analyzing data, student voice. And what we found out was for every term that we were using, whether it was in our PLCs or our larger PD sessions, everybody had a different meaning, a small little twist to what it meant to them. And what we found out from John Hattie's work, that unless there is teacher clarity, as well as a common language of learning, a school can be going all over the place. So we spent a great deal of time initially bringing the staff together and really fleshing out, what does a PIT mean? What does it mean when you're giving struggle time or deliberately putting students in the pit? And if you look up there, this is after much conversations, the teachers came up with the defined meaning for Kaahaaina. So we have a definition for the pit. We have one for learning targets and success, learning targets or intentions. So that's one. They're the same. We use it interchangeably. There's a slight twist in the meaning of it. Success criteria, what is student voice? And each group also came up with a graphic that would stick in our minds. The big 3 questions that John Hattie will always promote, because they create students who are their own teachers, is where am I going, how am I doing, and where to next. And that was in the previous one. Social media. We blasted out whatever we were doing on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We revamped our school web page. So everything right now is on our web page. We're going to be showing you a video later, but if you go to our web page, what we really felt was important was to document our journey. Because sometimes when you're moving along with school change, you forget where you came from. And somehow, when you document it, whether it's through DVDs or self-reflections of teacher, you find how far you've come. So that's also on our web page. But I believe some parts only teachers can see. But it's available there for our staff to look at. We defined ourselves to our staff, we defined ourselves to our community. Social media defined us to the world. This is how we evolved. That was our original uniform. It's the paw of a cougar. After much talking and everything, we said, okay, we wanted one logo for everything that goes out on social media, and that's this one that's in the middle, and it's also on our t-shirt. The mascot is something that's internal, and it has meaning for our students only. We also, with the help of Corwin, because they were working exclusively with us for the first 2 years, they did a lot of interviewing of our teachers, and in the process of interviewing, we were on webinars, and we highlighted teachers who were doing the good work. And what Corwin did was they came in and they did an interview and they wrote up the white papers. So then this is another way of promoting to the bigger educational opportunities. Since this went out, I think in Hawaii now we have a total of 9 schools who are actively getting physical learning training. And it really started out with social media, hearing the word, and then I think the white papers really help, because then you're hearing from individual student teacher voices. So we have Kevin Ashraf, who did one, and Teresa, who's a 6th grade teacher, and I think there are several others that we couldn't put up. Okay, so key question. Now we're wrestling with creativity and innovation. We've dabbled in it, and we're really at the surface level, but how does one get from autonomy and self-determination, or that empowerment piece, to innovation and creativity? And one of the great quotes that we follow is that creativity is thinking up of new things, and it's constantly thinking of these new things, whether it's within your small leadership team or with your grade level. The next step is innovation is doing new things. So that's the actual work that happens in the classroom. And this is our story, so we want to share it with you. I'm going to turn it over to Chad now, who's straddling being a coach and now being a budget administrator. Chad?
Okay, so just to kind of recap what Deb's been talking about, we defined empowerment at the very beginning as autonomy and self-determination. Deb shared with you kind of our journey, our background story. We needed to first figure out who we were. And that was part going through the logo, taking a look at all those things. Because schools change over time. Deb's been, like she said, she's been there for about 15 years, but staffs change, ideas change. And so kind of revisiting all of those things kind of helped us to define who this version of Kaahaaina is. So that's that first question. She was talking about had his 3 questions. Okay, so how are we going? We have to kind of take a look at ourselves. Where are we going? It's a little bit hard to see, but when we stopped and we revisited our mission and our vision, our seek, learn, and then empower. You can hopefully you can ask everyone at Kaahaaina, what's our mission, what's our vision, and they're able to tell you these things. So now we have a focus. We know the path that we're walking on, the types of students we want to create. That's why it's so important for us to know our vision and our mission. And finally, where are we going? This next part of the presentation is all about how do we get there. Now, sorry, the last part, I forgot one thing. The last part of our vision is to empower our students. And Deb talked about our 6 skills. When our students leave Kaahaaina, we want them to be able to have these soft skills that will empower them to be successful in whatever situations that they come into and face. And it's super important for our students to have that. Okay. So how do we get there? So for us, there's 2 ways that we've chosen to get there, to go on our path. They're technology and visible learning. So I'm going to talk to you today first about technology. So at Kaahaaina, we're in the 2nd year of our one-to-one deployment. Every student at Kaahaaina Elementary either has an iPad or a Chromebook. Every student has one. Yeah. This is one of our biggest classrooms. There's, I think, 50+ students in this classroom. This is our learning spaces classroom. There's 3 teachers. You can see 3 different smart boards built within the classroom. So when Deb decided to go one-to-one, she understood that technology was an accelerator to learning, that it was important for our teachers to have the technology and our students to have the technology and use it because it would bring out this innovation and creativity that we were searching for. But what Deb did was very different. A lot of times you'll buy these devices and you'll go out and you'll get someone to come to your school to teach you about professional development, or you send your teachers out to GAFE conference and all these schools of the future to learn things. What Deb did instead was she brought the people to Kaahaaina. 2 years ago, I was leaving my position at the state office and I was looking for a new position. And during the teacher transfer period, I looked and it was something odd. Tech positions are rare to come by to begin with during teacher transfer. And all of a sudden, this little school in Eva had 3 technology coaching positions posted. Not only did they have 3 technology coaching positions posted, but when I called and I asked, are we going to be tech coordinators? Deb said, no, I already have a tech coordinator, plus a full-time assistant to the tech coordinator. There were 5 people for a school of 650 that was going to focus on technology. That was one of the reasons that I decided to come to Kaahaaina. She also brought over Liz Ewan, and Gordon Wong, who was already there, had come from Waikele as a tech coordinator. So the 3 of us were the professional development that Deb brought in. Now, us being at this school really helped us to move forward in technology because it wasn't a drop-and-go lesson. We knew what the teachers were doing, and we matched the technology to what they were doing, and that's important. Technology is a tool. You don't build your lesson around technology, right? What's the teacher doing in the class? I think this technology would either make your life easier, maybe engage the students, or would fit perfectly for the lesson you're doing. So that's what we were able to do. One of the other things that we kind of stumbled upon was, how do you do professional development for teachers? You don't have the time to do it. So how we did Tech PD was we created the GAFE Dojo. Liz Ewan had this great idea of doing it this way. We sat down, Liz Ewan, myself, and Gordon Wong, we sat down and we mapped out all of the skills that we felt teachers needed to learn to be 21st century literate, and we broke it down into months, and then we broke it down into belts, and that's our dojo. So you started on a white belt and you ended up on your black belt. There was an extrinsic motivator we used. If you got to the black belt and you completed it, you got a brand new MacBook Air. And we made a huge celebration every time a teacher got it. We got the pictures taken, we put them up along the wall. You can see one of them there right now. It's ringed all the way around with the people. It's in our library so everybody knows. But one of the byproducts of doing this professional development this way was that we made the learning visible. We made visible learning happen for the teachers. What I mean by that is, as the teachers were progressing through the belts, we put that on a website for everyone to see. So you could see who was on white belt and who was on black belt. Because for some teachers, the extrinsic motivator of getting a brand new laptop is not going to help them. But if you're looking at where you are on that progression and you see everybody else, moving forward, and you're stuck on white belt, you don't want to be left behind. It also helped us to see the whole school was moving forward with technology professional development. That was key to implementing visible learning, because for the first time, when you put your teachers in this environment, you're shifting from teachers to learners, because they didn't know the technology. So everything that we were talking about in visible learning, they had to become the learners. People ask me all the time, what's the difference between a 20th century teacher and a 21st century teacher? And you think my answer is going to be about technology or anything like that. It's not. I think the key difference between a 20th century teacher and a 21st century teacher is a 21st century teacher is a learner first, then a teacher. A 21st century teacher is a learner first, then a teacher. Because the teachers were in this learning mode, this environment, they had to experience a lot of the things that we talked about earlier. They had to persevere through the belts. They had to communicate with each other when they were stuck. And through living all of those things that kind of prepped them. And you'll hear John Hattie say this all the time. Visible learning is teaching.
Reflective about their learning and to be aware of how they were doing in the subject area of math. So what I did was, as a grade level, we created this thing called a learning progression for our math modules. A learning progression is basically like a roadmap that tells students like what they need to accomplish in order to reach mastery of that unit or that standard. So there's usually a route that they follow and all the skills are listed. The learning target explicitly tells students what success looks like at the end. And once students know this learning progression and they know what success looks like, they're more apt to set goals. And they're more apt to be able to answer those 3 questions of where am I going, how am I doing, and where to next. This is the example of our learning progression. I know it's like really huge and there's a lot of words on it, but the kids were taught how to read and decipher it, and as we were going along, every lesson, like we would go over it. So the top part, you see there's the standards listed, and then for every column is a lesson in our math, in our stepping stones unit. And so what happened was the kids learned how to use that to color code after the end of every lesson, red, yellow, or green, depending on where they were at the end of the lesson. And they would just color code it for us. After they finished doing that, the next step was, you know, like some kids would just color code themselves green, even though they were red or yellow. So I needed them to show me proof that they really knew how to do that math concept or that math criteria that I had set up. So because of that tech integration and every kid had their own Chromebook, what I could have them do was video themselves doing reflection. So this is an example of one of the reflections that came out of it.
For this one, I am doing, I can find the area of rectangular shape, so I'm showing my thinking. I already did a picture of my thinking, so I'll just admit.
So as you can see, this child used a Google app called Screencastify, and what they did was they video recorded themselves. They drew a picture on Google Draw, and they went back and they videotaped their screen and they explained their thinking. Oftentimes when kids did this, it made them change the colors that they had originally given themselves, and I encouraged that with my students because I wanted them to realize that learning is not a destination, but rather a journey, and it's okay to go, like if you thought you were green, to change it to red, because then I would be able to give you feedback that way. After this, the next step was exactly feedback. So I would go in and I would watch the videos, and the next step would be to give them feedback. So here's an example of how I gave feedback to the students.
Miss Santos, you commented me over here that you disagree with my answer. So I'm making this other video so you can see. So you'll see my correction. Okay, Miss Santos, I made a correction, so I did it a different way. So I did it like the way we usually did it in class. We added those up.
So according to Hattie, feedback has a dramatic impact on student achievement. So giving him feedback and having him going back to revise his thinking was, important and it was something that I valued and that I wanted to do for my impact cycle. So the power in all of this, the power in doing all of these reflections and getting kids to self-assess was to be able to hear from every student. Even the most quietest child had to record themselves doing something or to show me proof that they understood something. So in my classroom, every voice matters. And I sent that message of, I want to know what you're thinking, whether or not it was right or wrong. I just want to know what's in your head. And even if you don't get it, I'm here to help support you. So that was the message that I was trying to send to my students. And for many students, video recording themselves was tough. Even for adults, like watching yourself on video is hard. So it was about leaning into the discomfort. They needed to see themselves on camera and be able to hear themselves speak to realize if they were getting it or not getting it. And so empowerment begins with a mindset shift almost, leaning into that discomfort for teachers and for students alike. And when you're talking about, leaning into discomfort for teachers, what we mean is that we're often afraid to let go. Because when we've been in teacher school, we've always been agreeing with the fact that, a quiet classroom is a good classroom. A teacher should know everything. But we know that through studies that that's not reality and that's not true. So we've learned that making mistakes, failures are good. So it's okay for us teachers to learn alongside with our students. And oftentimes we just need to let go of that control and not be afraid so that we can grow. And I guess this is the catalyst for us to get to that innovation and creativity, because if we're not able to let go of control, we're always gonna go back to what we're used to.
So I know that we're running short on time, so I'll try to just through it, but please feel free to stay at home if you like, because we'll be here for probably after. So exactly what Amy said, we had to lean into this comfort, right, as teachers, and then we had to give our kids like there's the opportunity to do that. So as coaches now this year, we tried some new things that were kind of risky and kind of scary, but they showed up to be pretty amazing stuff. So I'm just going to share a couple of them. So for example, right here, this is a kindergarten buddy with his fourth grade older buddy, and they usually do Santa letters where the fourth grader buddy like writes, like he pretends he's Santa Claus and sends it to the kindergartner, and the fourth grader's learning about perspective. This year, Amy, with her grade level, or that class, decided to freeze the letters and put it in the freezer, and then actually have the fourth graders and kindergartners working together when that letter was delivered. So when that letter was delivered, can you imagine a kindergartner grabbing that cold letter and being like, oh my gosh, this is really from North Pole? And so what was cool about that was this child, Angelo, he's a fourth grader, he said, wow, look how happy they are. Look how excited they are. He had never put himself in the shoes of a kindergartner before and felt that excitement. And so we were slowly starting to unwrap what is that missing link like between creativity and innovation and all these things that we're trying to do. It's empathy, right? It's putting yourself in someone else's shoes and feeling like you're needed to be there. Right here, the talkie making and coding talk robot. Last year and the years past third grade, we've always done a goods and services unit. We've always created something and sold it at a fair using fake money, and we learned about economics, all of that. This year, I pushed a small group of the students to go beyond that, and I said, start with something that this community needs. What does your school need? What does your class need? And for third graders, sometimes it's as basic as, like these kids, they said, Ms. Chung, there's so many kids who are shy, and they're afraid of talking, and I want to create something that can talk for them. And so out came T3000, this talking robot that they coded on Scratch Junior and hooked up to a Makey Makey, so when you press the button, it starts to talk. This is a teacher right here who's getting to press it and play with it. On this side is our first ever robotics team that we started this year. Lots of risk, lots of jumping. And this is an example of where empathy actually, not from the students as much, but we realized we didn't have it. Because the students were uncomfortable asking each other questions about how to make a rubber band robotic car. We asked them why, and the kids said, it's because we don't know each other. And in the rush of kind of pulling together this robotics team, we forgot the most important part, which is community building. And so now our next step is to bring that community into that team.
Okay, so today we started off with empowerment. We said autonomy and self-determination. If you provide for that, you're going to get to empowerment. We're still moving along. We know that all of this is involved in creating a school culture that is willing to move forward. And the next step is to really look into that empathy piece, because that came to us as aha, I would say within the last month and a half. And to hear Tony Wagner say it again this morning, it was like, okay, validation. We want to share with you at the end a video. This was created by one of our former students of Kaahaaina. He is now at Campbell High School. And we captured just a portion of it. If you want to see the full video, you can
exactly what I would want my daughter to be. You know, I would want her to be a visible learner. Every day I go home, I still want to come back to work the next day. Like there's always something that I want to change or make better, and I always reflect on what I can do better so that tomorrow it'll be a better day or a good day. Good morning, boys and girls. I love it. Thank you. Great. So we are here for our first quarter award assembly, which is for our dispositions of persevere and communicate. So this is our first ever award assembly for our dispositions, which we are very excited about.
Here at Caahaaina, we believe in teaching your students all the academic things that they need, but we also want to teach them the soft skills that they need. Because when they move on and they leave us, they go to Lima, they go on to Tamil, they go on to college, it's those soft skills that they're going to need.
Hello, so I hope everyone had a good lunch. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Andrea Lyn Mateo. I am the student member on the Board of Education, but today I am here with the Hawaii State Student Council, and I will have my other members of the Executive Council introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Kariza Nolasco. I am the Hawaii State Student Council historian.
Hi, I'm Victoria Kaahaaina, and I'm the HSSE secretary.
Hi, I'm Jessica Valdez, and I'm the Hawaii State Student Council chairperson.
Hi, my name is Neil, and I'm the Hawaii State Student Council Vice Chairperson.
And my name is Matthew Darrah. I'm the Sergeant at Arms for the Hawaii State Student Council.
As you can see, we have very strong voices in the Student Council. So I will hand the mic down to Victoria, who's going to give a little introduction of what our council is and what we do and how we voice our student concerns.
But first, we're gonna do an energizer led by Neil.
Okay, hello. So if I could ask if everybody could stand up. Thank you.
Get those legs going.
Okay, get your like arms moving, legs shaking. Okay, so this energizer is a repeat after me energizer. So you will say as I say.
You will say as I say.
Let's try that. You will say as I say.
You will say as I say,
And do as I do.
and do as I do.
Musa musa musa.
Musa, musa, musa.
A chicka chicka chua.
A chicka, chicka, chua.
Eh, aloe, aloe, aloe.
Eh, all the way, all the way, all the way.
Okay, we're gonna do like a high voice now. Musa musa musa.
Musa, musa, musa.
A chicka chicka chua.
A chicka, chicka, chua.
Eh, aloe, aloe, aloe.
Eh, all the way, all the way, all the way.
Okay, we're gonna do like a manly deep voice now. Oh, musa musa musa.
Musa, musa. A chicka, chicka, chua.
Eh, all the way, all the way, all the way.
Eh, all the way, all the way, all the way.
Okay, we're done. Thank you.
I hope you guys feel a bit more energized in the afternoon. So my mistake, I'm actually going to have our chairperson, Jessica Valdez, introduce the Hawaii State Student Council, what we do, and our purpose.
Hi, so how many of you have heard of the Hawaii State Student Council before?
Oh, okay, so many.
Okay, well, I'm still gonna go over it. So, it's also known as HSSC. It's comprised of 44 members, so one representative of each of Hawaii's public high schools. And it's a very, I think it's a cause that's very dear to me because I get to see, I'm from Hilo, and I get to see students from all over the state and talk about issues that concern them in their respective districts. And we get to present issues on the future and current issues of student life. So here's some history of HSSC. July 20th, 1972, Hawaii State Board of Education adopted the guidelines for student representation and participation, which was established as the HSSC. 1972, council started with 7 members from 7 school districts, and in 1998, the council expanded to 25 members, in 2012 to 44 members, and every year we're growing more and more, and I love seeing that. Yes, and here's a small video.
you about more of what HSSC does, and I'm gonna pass it on to Matthew.
Okay, so we're gonna go quickly over the NASC recognition. So in the various schools, they do activities and stuff throughout the school year led by their student governments, be it in their own unique and personal ways. And in order to recognize all the good work that the schools do, we put up the NASC recognition, which is the National Association of Student Councils, and through that they can get awarded the National Council of Excellence recognition. Now, there's a couple details on how they can apply for it at their own particular schools, but basically what it does is it puts the school's best foot forward in other campuses to showcase themselves throughout the state. At our student leadership conference, they get there's a huge ceremony for it, and it really empowers other students to push for their particular school to try and get these kind of recognition, and to be able to just kind of like have the bragging rights that their school is able to accomplish so much with their student council and be able to really dictate what school spirit means in their respective areas. And then going on to that, we also have the Oscar program, which is another great way that we like for schools to be able to showcase to us in a way that everybody can kind of understand. It's kind of called the Stuco Yearbook, where for every event a school has, be it a senior dance or maybe a junior's trip to the bowling alley, we want them to kind of document and take pictures of it and label the kind of things that went on during this. And then so the yearbook comprises of all the events that happened within that one school year, and it promotes a lot of goal setting, a lot of, it brings good ideas to the table, so when other schools kind of look at what they did and how it went and what other things they wish they could accomplish, newer schools can look at that and be like, oh wow, so they did this and it worked here, it worked well here, and maybe we could add something else here to make it our own personal thing. Because that's what we really enjoy here at HSSC. We like it when people kind of take our ideas and use it in their own very particular ways, or in their own unique ways, to showcase school spirit at their own individual schools. Thank you.
Okay, so in HSSC, every meeting that we always have time for focus groups. And basically what a focus group is a group of students, they don't have to be from the same district or school. They come together to improve certain issues that they all find in common within their schools. So these are the categories of focus groups that we have. One is school environment, student achievement, co-curricular, school participation, and in-class concerns. So we have a PowerPoint of a focus group report, and this is what it would look like. So there would be a focus group leader and its members. They would identify their concerns, they would have their ideas for an actionable goal, and at the end, they would put it into action with their next steps. Okay, so now it's your turn. So you're going to pass around Post-its, and could you please write your name, your school, and the date? You name your school and the day on the top right corner, and please identify any concerns that you may have regarding your school, or maybe the community of your school, where it's from. And we will collect it, and we will categorize you into groups based on what we think you wrote about the most. So for example, if we're going to put you in school environment, your problems or concerns that you wrote on your Post-it most likely have been a lot about school environment. So vandalism, or maybe there's potholes in the road, or pavement, things like that. So we'll give you a little bit of time to do that. We'll give you about
You want us to focus on the ones that you guys listed, your focus areas?
No, not yet. Just write down what you feel.
Anything.
Yes, anything.
And then from there, we'll take those and then we'll organize them into the groups that we fill in.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll give you about 5 minutes to start writing.
Delegates coming to us from all over the state and outer islands. So it's truly a remarkable experience to be able to see all these students come in from their various walks of life and talk about what kind of things that they see at their campus that's either good or things that could entice improvement. And it's really nice bringing them all together and flying them all out here and having them all in one room versus having like a Skype conference or trying to reach other people electronically, because we really get that face-to-face interaction. We can really see the needs of the other students and see where they come from their own unique places. But yeah, no, so what we do with this information is we bring it all together, and we, like I said before, we bring students together with like-minded interests, they can work towards common goals, and we also inform them of programs and stuff that the that the BOE is coming out with and the different strat plans and the different iterations of how student achievement can be addressed. And then they come to us and ask if there's any feedback that we can give to them. So that's where the student voice really comes in handy, where they can be able to influence bigger organizations to try and maybe make it more, reflect more on the needs of the students rather than what they think the needs of the students are. So they can really have a conversation with the various kids that come from all over the islands and be able to really have a good idea of what the students truly want versus what they think they might want through statistics and reports and stuff. They can actually have conversations and be able to gauge, just how much, and it's all of it is just to show how much we really value the student voice. And although our meetings are short and we only have it, we have it very occasionally, we value every single minute we spend with all these kids because there's no other great opportunity to have versus talking or texting over, telecommunication. But there's no other experience that really brings everybody together under one roof to really talk about the issues of education and what's going well and what's not going well and how we can fix it. Because at the end of the day, all we want to do is strive for better future generations. We want to make sure we pave the road and make it that much smoother for the next people that are about to step in our positions and for the people after that. And that's why we all joined HSSC in the first place, because we want to make sure that we're making change towards a greater common good for everybody, not just for particular groups, but change that everybody can experience and everybody can see front hand. And that's why it's so empowering for all of us to be a part of HSSC, and it's such a privilege to be able to lead these kind of discussions and lead these kind of changes to pave the way for a better tomorrow.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes.
So we're gonna actually kind of join up groups. So for this group, it's in class concerns and student achievement. So would Diane go in this group?
Anyone else?
Miss Camille Masutomi, Miss Wanda, Sean, Mr. Sean, Miss Joyce, and Mr. Winston.
Okay, and everybody else to the other side.
Oh, wonderful. Yes,
Or no, I was gonna record. Okay, no, you want to record so we can record so many ways you can see it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, hello. So this is the incompetence in student achievement. Would you like your post-its back to refer back to whenever we discuss? No? Do you remember? Okay. Which issue do you guys want to talk about? So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to facilitate a group discussion, which includes our paper. And what we're going to do is we're going to, just like the presentation that you see over here. Sorry, one moment. Okay. How about we start with one first? Does anyone want to volunteer to be recorded? Okay. Just write out. Okay, so just like what you see over here, we're actually going to try and duplicate this. So we're going to identify 3 main concerns, ideas, and possible next steps for your concerns, okay? Okay, so what does this group is the most
Regarding school environment
concerning issues regarding student achievement and
even to the school.
We can
Not
based
just
on
on
top
physical,
3,
it could be a
and then
natural
vote for top.
environment.
Brainstorm and then vote for top.
So I'm concerned about
And then, I'm sorry. What is wrong?
For student achievement,
Yes.
so absenteeism,
Oh, absenteeism.
for mine it was attendance, I think you put
Class code.
Wow,
Okay, so class attendance, so student attendance.
Student safety.
Okay. Can everyone agree with that? Okay, one more? Or two more actually?
Very broad.
Oh, it's pushed, yeah. Okay, please elaborate.
So what particular thing for student safety really speaks to you?
Many
things.
Big moments that affect, that they have to participate in, and they don't always buy into it, at least that's been my experience.
And school environment can also pertain to like the psychological and emotional needs of students.
Oh,
How
so
whether
they're
their
more
school is like
focused
a
on
safer
passive
area
instead of
or
work.
whether,
Okay.
something like
Okay.
vandalism or,
Can everyone agree with that concern?
destruction is probably
Okay.
fine. I mean, there's a bunch of different
Okay,
kind
so
of ways that
the one more concern.
and, students take it, a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
But they come up with
I had a couple.
certain areas.
I had hot classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I had cyberbullying.
Okay.
Increasing enrollment. I did put on student transportation, because especially like in your area.
How do we
if you're a
attract
student that rides the bus, you can't participate in after school things because your bus leaves, so like.
Oh, yeah.
It was more, it's not so much transportation as
One of
if
the
we had
challenges
two
of a
routes.
small student body, so we
My
can,
favorite, I always
and
use
students
shots.
want to have sports teams.
Yeah, it's hard to do that when you have a campus of less than
In school,
500.
after school, and sports activities, but it's all about transportation. Okay, so kids
That was one of my
can
questions
do a lot of things
before,
before.
I didn't know before I
it's
came in.
more like
I wanted to hear student voices.
Yeah, or like, and maybe in and out of school.
But I'm wondering if
Okay.
co-curriculums are a part of.
Yeah, okay, sorry, one moment. We actually have a term for this as school participation, so I will get that right before you.
So the charter school is part of the student transportation.
We're all gonna bet on the one, because we're
And then in the world, sometimes charter schools are not equated to being public schools. So I like being part of the work of making sure that everyone knows that public schools
From
are
what
charter
Ms.
schools.
Camille
One way
said,
is to
can you
also
sort of agree
have our students
on one
participate
concern that could
in activities that
be
are,
that's
so
probably
they are.
most of the sense of.
So we could have a representative from Makahoihoi.
Well, that's a very good question, because
Diana?
as of right now, it does pertain to only public schools,
Okay,
but that's
okay.
really great.
That's part of the
Is everyone
language.
okay with that?
Yes,
Charter schools,
essentially.
public schools.
Is everyone okay with
That's one of the reasons why we're really trying to build HSCC, really include more campuses, and be able to get more representatives from other schools who may or may not be able to lock out, speak their concerns to their particular campus.
Okay.
So that's a very good one, that's something.
Okay,
that-
so
public
could
charter
our main
schools.
concern be out of all the
Public
concerns
charter
that we
schools.
have
Yes,
over
are they
there?
private
Can
charter
everyone
schools?
see it by the way?
They're,
Out of all the
Oh, I
concerns
didn't know
that
So I
you
guess
see
that's
over
what
there,
you're
what do you
Yes,
think the main
okay.
concern is? Is it transportation?
for student achievement.
Oh, we're just combining.
We're combining it.
Sure.
Student achievement and class concerns is.
Sorry, I just
That's
ignored it
what
because that's what I heard,
Okay, got it.
but it's not there.
But of those like four things, what is?
Yes, yes, those four things. It's not there. Definitely no.
Transportation, attendance,
This is a deal, yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. Okay, so attendance.
Attendance.
Attendance is the excessive testing
Yeah,
right.
and the needs are getting.
Because, essentially at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
all needs of students,
Right.
being able to report those needs
Yeah.
up to,
Okay.
people.
You might have some concern.
There you go, you guys have an action item to work on.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you
I
for
think
that.
there was a reason I came here.
Encourages your council as well.
Yeah, because there's different perspectives
Exactly.
from all kids.
That's one of the beautiful things about it, is to be able to see.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to brainstorming ideas for an actual goal towards why we think that attendance is a concern. And how could we possibly help? Like maybe with incentives, like oh, if you come if you have perfect attendance, you get a certificate, or you get candy or ice pop,
Is there any-
something like that.
anybody else who thinks of it?
That could be one solution. Oh, sorry. That could be one possible solution.
From a student's point of view, what would you think? What we
Yeah.
are hoping for.
Okay.
Hear from a
And
student's
within the
point
charter
Oh,
school.
so I personally also have a problem
I
with
inherited,
I go to Coast
just
City,
I'm
that's
new.
my problem.
Just
So
a
the
little
traffic in the morning is really bad.
So,
So
amazing.
we used to have workout for first period, but now we repealed it only because I think the administration understands that there are many students who aren't even from Coast City. And
schools have. Good example, John and I were talking, John is the principal of Campbell, and Kaiser. We hear that the DOE says no more auditoriums can be built. So we don't have auditoriums. So how are we gonna do that? I mean, the performing arts. Yeah, so we have a stadium, we have a gym. I'm not complaining about that. Yeah, what about the performers? So what happens is, we need to, okay, P, don't have classes today because we're gonna go into the gym to do
Something
something.
bad happens.
So, the point, I guess, with facilities is, what should all schools have?
Like a
Baseline.
Like a baseline.
Baseline, what is the floor?
So there's some level of equity.
Yes.
Because I haven't sent to them many schools
Mhm.
where seeking equity is
That seems harsh, 5 absences, you fail a whole class for a year?
Yeah, but-
Thank you, that's different.
Just a quarter.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of the
I know the
things that
DOE
we
has
do.
something
So,
called,
do you have any other ideas?
what's that called, those
That's
standards,
super
facility standards.
Our-
Yeah.
But, so that's the quality of the school.
I
And what about each school? Does it have
we're
to
not
have,
as lucky
or we
as
should
I
have
thought we
some
were
kind of
gonna
equity?
I
Different
mean, I
specialized.
do live in an area.
Baseline.
Especially your
I
science
used to be
major,
a
that's a
2-minute
good
drive
point,
for
you know,
me.
every middle school is supposed to
But
have
a lot of
science
my
lab
classmates
by
do
DOE
have on
specifications.
because we are
I
on
have,
for our music
what,
program.
6 middle
So
schools,
a lot of
and
them
I
do
think I have
come
1
in,
science lab.
Yes,
So, you know, it's,
so you can't
from
do all
other-
the labs
Yeah.
that you
from
want.
other
So
parts
that,
that
and
we're
that goes
in.
back, we want to talk about.
It has been a struggle for a lot of my
achievement. We don't
classmates
have
actually
basic
that
facilities.
they'll
I could even bring it up to my council. Something that I think that would be a good idea is
I'm sorry?
if it were
No, they weren't.
acceptable for you
So it's
to
a
go
retrofit
in
issue.
and not only like talk your way, not talk your way, but for you to be like, okay, if all these people have the same exact reason, then it should be excused. You know, type of thing, instead of it being like,
Like a car problem or.
yeah, so like if
accident on the
these many
highway.
people have like a traffic problem, then that's obviously like no one's making it up or anything, that can be excused because
Community participation.
it happens a lot of the time, so.
I think that kids have more power than they think they do. And if you did come up with some
And they'll all come
solutions, you
together
could approach
just talk about it.
administrators and say, well, at another school, they have this policy and it's working really well.
So, with the list that we have,
And student achievement, if they want to have
we've got
documentation. of it.
bullying,
I'd love to see students
absenteeism,
become more aware
that
of their influence.
student
Students
safety.
want to know.
Student safety.
I think that's a, I'm sorry, I think that's actually the purpose of voices.
Social emotional,
We're all
Yeah.
enrollment,
We get to
creativity,
share, and we also have
facilities,
guest
teacher
speakers
retention,
come in.
and
For
community
example,
participation.
last
That's
year,
about 9
we had
topics.
a
So
lady
we want to try and
from the
dig down
Department of
into
Education come to
what
us
kind
and
of
talk about how we
issues
can
that
accept
are
or
really
make
important to us at
transgender
this
students
time.
feel accepted in our schools.
So we want to try
So
and do an
we actually
NOVG
had a whole
strategy. What
forum
we do
about
with
it,
it is we try and
we
use it to
had to
kind
give
of
out
gauge
all
where
our
everybody
ideas, and
is
it
and what
actually
kind
went
of
up to
conversation
the
they'd be
board.
willing to have. So
It's
everybody
very,
gets 3 votes.
important
We'll
and
go through and we'll be
significant
able to tally and
because,
see
like you said,
where interests lay.
It can
I
go
know
to
we
other
only have 5 minutes, we're
schools,
going to try and do
our
this really
ideas,
quickly.
and then
Here, I
collectively, we
can
can all
take
be
it.
able to, you know, make the community better.
And to kind of continue on that for a little bit, we do have like district reports and stuff like that where we meet with people within our district and we have that exchange, which I personally like, and where a lot of my own, like, well, not my own, but I kind of branch off of another school's things and I bring it to my school and it's,
Absenteeism.
or, so Feel Solutions, something like that's another thing that IPHCC does really well.
Student safety.
It's a good way to have that.
You could kind of lump some things, couldn't you? Student safety.
So,
Bullying go under student safety?
Yeah, so bullying would kind of go over
Can
student
we all
safety.
agree
So I'll
that
go ahead and
one
bridge
idea
those two
of
together.
actual
We'll put 3 years, so
all
we'll have a
the
total of 4.
students, you know, feel more empowered about
I'm sorry, what was it?
Social
emotional
matters.
Social emotional matters, and this can kind of go into bullying as well.
They could share it with their own school.
Would you say that
And
would
give
be
it to
bullying?
administration.
Or
Well, you know,
into
that's
student safety?
definitely a broader issue.
Should there be more? I'm sorry?
So votes for social emotional needs?
To know
Or
what
matters?
students at other schools had accomplished.
Okay, enrollment,
Good ask what school are you in.
that's very important, okay. Creativity. 2.
Okay, 3 votes.
Very
3.
Oh, I'm sorry, we can vote 3 times.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then facilities.
I think one
Yeah,
time.
this is a pretty good topic.
One of them played Kahoot for our homecoming game.
And then teacher retention.
The best. I mean, Kahoot's really good, so, but it's okay.
And
I
then
think all
community
of
participation.
Colbert high schools have something to offer.
Okay. So with this, it's a really easy way to gauge where people's interests lay. So right now we have facilities, and then student safety and bullying, and then teacher retention. So going into facilities how do we address the concern? Like like I heard we were talking about like a baseline of what all schools should have. Where would you want to try and go from there? Try and establish a specific protocol or standards as to how schools should.
Our next step are the next steps.
You know,
So
kind of.
we have to get more
I
specific
like the
about
idea of
our
the
ideas
baseline.
for the actionable goal. So if we want student voice to bring up to the administration attendance policies,
So there will be a way that
how could we implement that? Like specifically, like do we go through student government within our schools? Do we have maybe more than one HSSC rep to go to HSSC and we can talk about it at HSSC?
Or does it have to do with the administration of the school, maybe not so much like this?
I haven't heard that term before, so that's new to me. So,
What do you say, Justin, they should be
Could we do,
reviewed?
because you guys meet, I
Because
don't
the
know how
aspects
many times
define
a year.
4 times a
what
year.
all schools
So every
should
quarter.
have.
Because it would be
Yeah.
really good if,
Instead of
you said you have
quality.
and you
44
want to say
schools,
you revisit this?
if you could, if we could first get like what, all the like what do all the schools do? So we had like a
Okay, so-
brainstorm map of all the schools. and
How
some
else?
of
I mean,
the
unless
ways that
this
they
kind of
handle
like tackles it all in one
Collecting
go,
data.
which.
Yeah,
Okay,
collecting all
collecting
that
data.
first
Okay, so
before we come up
What
with
are
our
the
idea of
ways
how
to
we're gonna
address the
approach
facilities
the
in various
principal of the
campuses?
school.
Okay.
I know some
That
facilities
rescues
are
all
kind of
that
like
good
old and.
Right, because then we could choose, like, at our school,
Yeah,
it would really
remodel,
make sense that we went with these 3 ideas
Yeah.
versus something else, because maybe the other ones wouldn't work for us.
So would you say like creating an individual
Like a
survey?
matrix, or
Or-
yeah,
or yeah.
maybe
A
even just a survey. then
Creating
it
a
wouldn't
survey
have to
that
be-
all the students, all over the state or within the school?
Yeah, because then you would have a repository of all the ways different schools handle it, and then I could kind of go through, and I would have, you know, like Andrea's name, if I had questions, I would know to call her
Oh,
and ask her about
okay.
it.
Is there another way that this can be tackled? If not, we can move on to other things, we can just address this as, you know, the way that.
As an English
our-
teacher,
our
I'm
schools-
thinking that I could do with my classes what you've done with us, and ask them what their concerns
Budget
are,
priorities for.
and then give them a chance to
Because you
speak
can have the
to the
plans,
student
but
government or send their letters to the
there's no
student
budget
government
for
at the school. And the student government could look over and, like, you took our notes and saw what, and see if there could start some kind of conversation maybe.
Yeah, that's good, especially with the HSC rep that you guys have that could include, like definitely they can take that up and bring it to us.
That'd be very
Given what I
helpful.
received, $1 million.
Yeah, how
What
do
are
we
you
just,
gonna do?
yeah.
With all the 44 schools, just high schools.
Yeah, and
250 schools.
going back to my school, for example, we have one street in the middle of our campus, and it was so old, so many
Okay,
potholes.
so
and we put a
Victoria, they
request
said
in
like
to get it
have their own
repaved, and then
focus
just the last summer, it
Oh,
finally
okay,
got
okay.
repaved.
Okay,
So that's
so
another
does
way that the
anyone
priorities
have
could
any
be put into effect,
final,
what really needs to
thoughts
get fixed immediately, and what could
on
kind of wait
everything
for a
that we
little
just
bit.
did or the next
You're
step?
talking about repair and maintenance?
Yeah, so we
Revisit repair and maintenance priorities.
Okay, we have about a minute. I'm just thinking that this is a discussion. This is, the thing was about, okay, this traffic or
Could we,
something like that.
could we
But
plan
I'm thinking
differently,
right
so we
now,
share
bunch of
facilities
students
instead of building new
that just say,
facilities?
I have to
share
do this,
facilities,
I have to do
in what
this.
respect? Like,
Well,
Work.
for example, if
Because they work
he has a
on
band
Monday
room,
morning.
and the school down the road doesn't,
Those students,
why can't we
how
just
can I,
do a band program at
you know,
that school?
I like
We're like, we're doing that, we have a gym, but we don't have a JV basketball team. Another school has their JV games at our school, so we are
Yeah.
sharing facilities.
I've seen that happen too, where schools don't have like their own football field, so they go to the nearest campus to be able to have their football game. So, sharing facilities.
I was gonna say, yeah, because I mean, at least my social studies teacher is, like, if you have
That's a good one.
a certain,
Especially for the smaller schools, so they only have
you
to
have-
build things that the other school
if
doesn't have, so they
you
can
have
kind of
something
cater
that's
to
gonna
each other.
limit, you can do work or
It's the
something like that,
reality
you
for
can
us
reach out to me,
on
and
the
then you
Big
can work
Island.
that
We
way
just-
out.
We're
I
never
think
going to
some
all
students are
have
kinda
a
scared to
gym
do
in
that,
every
so I
school.
talk
It's
to
not
them
going to
and say,
happen.
hey, like,
Yeah, or
So
football
how do
field
we
or
make
track
better
field.
use of
like my
existing
parents,
facilities?
or something like that.
Yeah, and that could help a
they're
lot
kind
with
of
the
afraid to
athletic
do that, or that
program
they're
too. They're
more
sure
shy
they have,
about
like,
it.
one school at
that
least has
they
a
can
swimming
use
pool, so we want to go to that school.
voice to, you know, be like, hey,
Or a tennis
I
court.
know everybody
Okay.
else, I do have something else.
That was a really
So,
good one, actually. I like
kind
that
of
one.
speak up for themselves.
Is there any other ways to address
So it's more
facilities?
like,
before we could even go to
And this was a lot, this is really good to work with. And we can kind of close this discussion here and present just this one topic because there was a lot of focus and concern in this particular topic.
There are a lot of students who may not feel
Yes, please.
they are cared about at school.
In terms of facilities, what do you
law,
see?
something like that. So maybe if we could
I just want to talk about Spanish.
Yeah.
The facilities.
What's going on at home?
And so one way that our campus started combating vandalism, because last year there was a huge vandalism attack against our school, we started installing security cameras in various places to be able to kind of monitor the students coming in and leaving to see who was in at a particular time and, you know, would they be a suspect in case there was a huge vandalism happening at a certain place. So, you want me to use this one? Oh, as a
Vandalism, the facilities.
So like talk up to the teachers.
And I heard actually this
Like, I
one
mean,
time
I
they
feel
actually
lucky
kind of
that I have my
encourage vandalism
a
movement where
couple
like
teachers more than
students
just one
kind
teacher,
of
you know, but some
show
people don't.
shine their
And
artistic
about
abilities.
school, you know.
So they have this wall
So I
designated
think
for
finding someone to go to.
Yeah.
So it's the first step actually when it comes to attendance.
Express themselves.
Express themselves.
Right.
Expression. Mural.
Can everyone agree with that?
So,
Find out why it's an individual.
Yeah, no, it could be, I'm just trying
There's
to.
different reasons
trying
for
to
different students.
there's this many kids that come late to school because of traffic.
Yeah.
For they come into school because they don't like, they get stoned, they don't like come to school, cut in class. There's a whole
line at
bunch of
McDonald's
other
is too
reasons.
long.
But the kid that's stuck because rail is getting built, that's this many.
Because I go to a public school,
You
and like
have
on the
a
other
real
side, there's like
problem?
the rail construction
That's-
happening at right by our school.
That's
So like,
what it is.
my classes are
And
right
that's
there,
the
the
kid voice.
rail construction, all you can hear is
Why
like
don't we
pounding metal and
What
everything.
sucks about
And
it?
so,
What is it that could?
yeah, I'll probably graduate by then. Yeah.
So focus groups
So won't be a
are
problem
actually
for
really
me.
helpful
Yeah.
for your students to stand, especially if they trust the teacher who's facilitating it.
Or if it's facilitated.
Yeah.
Unintended
That would be,
That's
found pretty proven effective at HSSC. A lot of discussion has taken place where we even like go over time because we're just so into the discussion. We're trying to help our community.
And then the next step is then how do I, as a student, how do I build that conduit between that and my teachers and my administration and my principal, right? So that my voice is then heard and then there's
The
some
main
sort
issues that concern you are
of,
very.
so what are the steps that we need to
Students
do? I want to hear you. Students want to hear you.
That's why we really
To
like to
build
do
that.
this, to be able to just see the
So
perspectives
that,
every so
that communication is ongoing.
have a game where, you know, interest
And
like.
then
You know,
after the.
Mr. Whatever, dude, this is the reason why kids aren't coming to
And
school.
we've actually done this with the
What are some
student
of the
activities
things maybe we
coordinators
can
at their
work together
school
and figure
and
out
brought it up to them and we're
to help?
bringing
And
something
like after the
so
bridge
they can add
built,
up
the
to
next
their.
step.
Five absences and everybody get Fs, that's not standards-based grading.
So
Whatever you want to say. Oh, did I say that? Sorry, I'll take it back. But-
No, it's okay.
But just whatever it is that you look, she just rolled her eyes at me.
Oh, sorry.
Not only strengthens that community, it strengthens.
But whatever it is and that concern is, you know, it's a school concern, that's why it makes it so important. Because you
Yeah.
And then now the next step would be to take all of this, and since we are all from different schools and communities here, take this back to the communities and schools and let them know.
For one, I wouldn't be doing this right now without like this conference helping me become a better leader, but I never participated in it. So it's like a different feeling, but from like my fellows that go to my school, they tell me that like after participating in it, as a participant, it changed their lives because one of them especially, they're not very outspoken, they're very shy. So imagine yourself like you're in high school again, you're like a 9th grader, 10th grader, and you're like shy and you're like, hi, my name is Neil. And then you walk into this like, wow, like the Energizer's 24/7 and like you're just like filled with happy environments and like it gives you a sense of like place that you wanna like help people because it's not just all the fun and games, it's like lessons that they learn and like techniques to become a better leader. And like this conference is like with like all of the students from within the state of Hawaii that fall under like a student government or a student council association, and to be to attend this, you have to go through their SAC, and then your SAC signs you up. And last year, Ms. Frias, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had like 200, 300 participants at this event held at UH Manoa. And it's just like an eye-opening experience for everyone. Like if you're a teacher, you're a student, or like you're even a facilitator, it's new and like it's exciting.
Oh, and to add to that, SACs could also participate in the conference as well.
And we just wanted to end with different ways you can contact us. So this is our emails, which you can reach us. And we also have a website, which is hssc808.weebly.com. And through that website, you can learn more about the different events that we have and also the different meetings that we hold. So our next HSSC meeting will actually be on January, to show you guys how the website looks like. So this is our website, and as you can see, oh, and this was our Christmas video. This was we had a meeting in December, and we just did like a few activities relating to the
job that you are doing is working, but nowadays things is like equal. They treat us equal. We are the first lady. We can't be break much. We can't be danger.
Well, that's not honest.
That's
I don't remember that. That's always not wrong.
Piping in over here, huh?
Hey, tell us what schools you guys from? I'm just curious.
I'm from Waipao High School, and I'm currently a senior.
I'm from Pearl City High School. I'm a senior.
I'm from Warlua.
I'm a senior.
I'm from Hilo High School and I'm a senior.
Kalaheo High School, also a senior.
Oh, Waipao High School, a junior.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
So, do you want to?
I tend to do this. I wanted to bring up one of the things that came up here, and a question I had was whether or not public charter school students are able to participate in the Hawaii Student Council. And if the answer at this point is no, okay, then I would like for your consideration to figure out how public charter school students can be a part of it, because they are public school students. Okay.
They're currently not members. Right now, our 44 member organizations basically are regular traditional public high schools. We basically hold all of our council meetings. They're all held on Saturdays, holidays, night times, you name it, all outside of school days. So realistically, any student through Sunshine Law could come and participate.
Okay.
The only problem is they're not currently members. We do have a constitution, bylaws, and all that was basically created with just the regular 44-member organization. But others are very small, and some say they don't have. And that's an option.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah, no, that was a really good question, and we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, but if you want to put it back on that previous contact us page, I know some of you guys are taking pictures. If you guys want to look at that again, we can answer any other questions and stuff through our emails or through the meetings. So if you want to reach us that way, feel free. And again, we really like your guys' voice, and we really like to hear your guys' perspective. Like I mentioned in our group over here, you know, it's a lot different from that of the students. And being able to see both perspectives, it really puts a clear picture on what we need to do to be able to make sure that students succeed and make sure that they have a fun time doing it. So thank you guys for your time. We wish you guys a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Okay, thank you.